Senator Lankford. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. Senator Lankford, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you. Thanks to all the witnesses that are here. I want to walk through a little bit of the reporting and of the cooperation and duplication within government. Just back of the envelope, as I look at this, FBI, CISA, HSI, Treasury, Secret Service, SEC, all have cryptocurrency entities, all say, report to us, we want to be able to help through all this process. From entities on the outside working with this cornucopia of three-letter agencies that are across the federal government that all have a cryptocurrency, crypto crimes section of it. What does that look like? What are you getting as far as feedback? And I'd really like all three of you to be able to respond to that. All three of you have some insight in there. Siegel, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, while it would be great if one agency could handle all this, the reality is all the agencies have a specific role and function in imposing cost on these threat actors. And I think the legislation that has recently been passed has taken the appropriate first step of designating a single agency and possible cooperating agencies to handle the initial inbound and triage of the reporting data, and then routing that information to the proper branches for investigations of different shapes and sizes. I think it was noted in the CEO of Colonial Pipeline's testimony, some of the frustration that he felt at being overwhelmed with the volume of inbound duplicative requests from law enforcement agencies and regulators while he was trying to manage his company through an incident. And I felt for Mr. Blunt during that testimony. It can be distracting if a victim of ransomware contacts the wrong agency. It can be distracting, and so I think that it is important through this legislation and the rulemaking process that it be made crystal clear where victims of ransomware, based on their state jurisdiction, regulatory jurisdiction by industry, where they should go and what those requirements are, so that the private industry, principally attorneys that advise and assist these victims, can study this and then give practical, timely advice and direct those victims to the proper agency in a timely manner.
Let's go.
Thank you, Senator. I commend the legislation, specifically the tenets, to aggregate and standardize the reporting. As an example, our data has recorded 14 times more ransomware payments than what was reported to FBI via IC3. And this legislation will help bolster their intelligence. And in order to handle this amount of data coming their way, I would hope the agencies are resourced appropriately with the tools and resources they need to operationalize this information. That can lead to the arrest and seizures of cryptocurrency payments. And we've seen a number of successes from multiple agencies over the last year targeting various facets of the kill chain, targeting those illicit cash-out destinations that are laundering the proceeds, targeting specific threat actors and holding them accountable, and imposing costs by denying them of the cryptocurrency payment that they sought. So enhanced training and tools to be able to operationalize the influx of data, but also I think global cooperation with U.S. Agencies and global agencies is very important, as the threats that are facing our global partners are also the same ones that are attacking us today.
We'll come back to that. Safo.
Thank you, Senator. I would agree with my fellow witnesses that there needs to be, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, greater clarity and simplicity in the ability for victims to share information with the government. The other piece of this, of course, though, is that, as Ms. Coven just alluded to, there is a significant need for there to be adequate resources within departments and agencies to both ingest the information, but also really to establish those relationships in the first place that facilitate this information sharing from victims to the government. Some will be required to do so under the legislation once the rulemaking process is complete, but others will not. And so the ability to have adequate resources within the field, whether it be within CISA's regional staff members, whether it's with Secret Service or FBI agents, it's really critical to establish those relationships within the community in order to better equip the government as well as the private sector to play a meaningful role in combating ransomware and wherever we, as I mentioned, find cyber criminals going next.
When you say the community, you're not talking about individual businesses. You're talking about entities that actually coordinate this, private businesses that work with other private businesses to be able to protect them from ransomware. Is that correct?
It's both, I would say. Yes, it is. It is those who are working to help victims manage their unfortunate ransomware incident. But actually, we often talk about and encourage organizations to establish a relationship with CISA and with FBI before they become the victim of an incident. It's better to have that, to know who to call and what may be useful to the government, learn that information ahead of time so that when the unfortunate day occurs, there is already an established working relationship, and that can facilitate a much more rapid response, both for the government but also for the victim.
Yeah, that is part of the challenge that I lay out here, though. You don't know whether that relationship is with FBI, with CISA, with HSI, with Treasury, with Secret Service, with who that might be. And so it's one thing to be able to say they need to develop relationships, but to be able to maintain relationships with all those entities because they all will come calling. And I left out, even you were talking about the Colonial Pipeline with DOT, they may show up as well, and multiple other entities that would show up as regulators to say, did you fill out the paperwork about? This is still a convoluted mess at the worst possible moment for a company, for a hospital, whatever it may be, that just had a ransomware attack, and now they're getting bombarded with all these different federal entities calling them and wanting information and details on this. There has to be a single source. I know we're in the process of working that through, but we've got to also not just have one as a primary, but the others turn that off in the process of going through that. I do need to clarify as well, Ms. Coven, you talked about trying to be able to actually follow through, arrest, recover the information. From the chairman's information of what they've worked through already on this, 74% of the entities that are doing ransomware are Russian or Russian affiliated or Russian controlled. The recovery at that point in working with local law enforcement, clearly they're not going to cooperate. What's the best tool at this point to be able to get engagement?
Thank you for that question, Senator, and that's of primary focus for us. There's been several examples over the last year that have illustrated that even if the perpetrator is out of reach of U.S. law enforcement, we can still impose costs, we can still seize assets, we can leverage our global partnerships to be able to triangulate these threat actors. And we've also taken actions against their cash-out destinations. A lot of Russian-based services like Garantex, Suex, and Chadex have been on the designation list, and it's severely inhibited their businesses. So there's a number of ways we can still impose costs and then also work up the kill chain to identify those threat actors and enablers, that access brokers, malware as a service providers, that are also fueling these campaigns. And if the NetWalker case is any example, this is a global problem. That NetWalker affiliate was a Canadian-based individual and the most profitable affiliate of that cybercrime ring.
Okay. Chairman, thank you.